I'm Leah, this is Liberation Tarot. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about storytelling in the tarot. Tarot is an excellent way to learn about ourselves, and one of the reasons it's so good at that is that it tells us stories about ourselves or about the subject that we're asking about. So before we get into the stories, I want to first introduce the deck that I will be using today. It's my newest deck, the Numinous Tarot. It's totally amazing, and the creator of this deck provides a guidebook for you, and the guidebook actually has a lot about storytelling in the tarot, and the author wrote out the journeys and cycles of the stories in tarot, so definitely check that out. Another cool thing about this is that the author has removed gender binaries, so here you can see numinous cards compared to Rider-Waite-Smith cards. There's no feminine, no masculine, no male or female. And the court cards also have removed gender binaries as well as the sort of aristocratic vibe of the court cards. So the tarot has 3 stories that it's telling. It's really more than that, but I'm going to break it down into 3 obvious stories that the tarot is telling. And I'm going to actually make a few videos breaking down those different stories. And this video is going to focus on the story of the major arcana, the Fool's journey. So that is the journey that the Fool card, or you or me or the subject of the reading, the Fool, that takes a journey around through the other 21 cards in the major arcana. And the other journeys and stories that we will be learning about later on in different videos, one is the pips. So that's the ace through 10 of every suit. And like with the major arcana, you move through the progression of that story of each suit. And in that case, they're not as major life events as the major arcana is. They're more day to day. And then there's the court cards of every suit. So that's typically page through king. And there's a progression of your persona. You know, you mature through those cards. And we'll talk about those another time, but one thing to just keep in mind for all of the stories in tarot is that they're cyclical. So as you move through the progression of the story and it culminates and eventually ends, you move back around to the very beginning. So back to the Fool or back to the ace or back to the page. So everything in tarot is cyclical, and at any point you can move into different parts of the stage, different, stages on the journey. And by understanding where you are in the cycle of the major arcana or the pips or the court cards, you can understand where you've been, you can better understand where you're going, and we can all be humbled knowing that we're going to begin again at some point. So come along with me, and I'm going to tell you a story about the Fool. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful fool. The fool had never been away from home, but felt a deep calling to leap into the great unknown. So one day, when the weather was perfect and a rainbow shined bright, the fool leaped, brave and naked, into the wild waters of the future. They were protected by their own innocence. Their power, however, was so wild that they had to learn to control it, and that is when they meet the magician and start to embody the magician's mastery of the elements and discover new and diverse tools with which to wield their magic. After all the flashiness of being a magician, they enter a phase more refined. They learn to receive and decode messages all around them, interpreting these spiritual messages, becoming a diviner, an interface between the physical world and the divine. Such wisdom and intuition naturally leads them into the role of nurturer. They tend to the earth, to the community, and to themselves, utilizing their power for pleasurable and joyful lovingness. In order to nourish the community in ways that are sustainable, safe, and reliable, they develop structure. They become the founder of various codes, projects, and governmental bodies. They believe in their own authority. Such a mission to care and nourish for community leads to a desire to know more. They begin to seek a teacher or ancient body of knowledge. In doing so, they discover the teacher and visionary within themselves and become the authority of their own knowing. Such knowing and learning leads them inevitably to love, and it is such a love, diverse, abundant, and joyful, and the love starts with loving themselves, emanates out to their most intimate relationships, and further outward into the greater collective of human beings, earth beings, and spirits. With such grand experiences, divine wisdom, and love, they feel capable and confident to launch themselves into their dreams. With their companions and supporters at their side, they ride into their future, believing in themselves and believing in their dreams, becoming the chariot. As they start manifesting their dreams, fear and doubt creep in. They feel resistance inside themselves and outside themselves, and they learn to source an inner strength that allows them to move forward. It has been tiring to learn strength in real time, and they are ready to be quiet and reflective for a while. So they seek solitude and meditation to learn about themselves, their own patterns, and the shining source of their strength, becoming the hermit. The reflection and solitude culminates in a rebirth, as life decides to take control and fate seems to have its way with them. They undergo a major transformation and recognize they have little control over the transformation at hand. Through this rebirth process, they emerge with more clarity, as well as an understanding of the intensity and often unfairness of outside forces. Such clarity and recognition leads them to justice. They see more clearly the oppression and inequities of the world and develop a willingness and a vigor to do something about it. Right as their motivation builds, so too do they notice a sense of impending loss. There are forces at play in their own lives that threaten structures and relationships that they hold dear. Yet they do not have control and must relax into the unknown and often scary realization as their world turns upside down. And the world does turn upside down, and they experience great loss and grief. With this great turning comes great change, and they rise again anew with new insights and new strengths. Such a rebirth gives them a chance to find harmony between what was, what is, and what will be. They learn to act in ways that are sustainable, neither too high nor too low, and they find themselves with increased mastery, able to alchemize their many powers into a cohesive offering. Just as they felt stable and cool-headed, old habits, temptations, and shadows come sneaking in. They fill them with self-doubt and tempt them into self-sabotage, trying to lead them to believe they are incapable of resisting these old temptations. Through such temptations, they learn to work with their shadow, even to love their shadow, neither succumbing to it nor taking it all too seriously. In order for that shadow work to really take hold, however, they must undergo another major transformation. Their tower is destroyed, meaning all their foundations and structures crumble, and they fall into the sea. As they fall, they believe they will perish, not knowing that the sea will lovingly embrace them and help them find their way to shore. Washed up on shore, naked, vulnerable, and terrified after so much loss and change, they feel bleak beyond recognition. They lie on the cold beach at night and cry until they can cry no more. And when they open their eyes, they see stars, stars. They are so beautiful, and they bring them the vague promise of hope up ahead. Regathering their strength, they watch the moon cycle through its phases, and under the guidance of the moon, they remember their magic, the beauty of their shadows, the nature of change, and the power of their intuition. They dance under the moonlight. The days come again, the sun rises, and they feel the light warm their bodies. Joy, possibility, and hope spring to life. Life becomes filled with abundance and beauty. Emerging into the light helps them realize the entirety of their journey from the moment they left home. They awaken to their own evolution, face themselves head on, including all the seeming mistakes along the way, and they learn to accept all that they have been through in order to move into the next phase of their lives. And finally, they are in alignment with the earth, experiencing the divine fruits of their labor and the beauty of love and community. They have done it. They feel strong, wise, calm, and connected, a full and blossomed flower, rooted deep into the earth and awaiting all the many possibilities. Recognizing that they have accomplished all that they set out to do and learned more than they ever could have imagined along the way, they are ready to leap once again into the unknown and begin a new journey. Perhaps as you listened to The Fool's Journey, you recognize some archetypes, some characters, some themes. The Fool's Journey is famous inside and outside of tarot because it famously includes archetypes, characters, and themes from stories throughout history and the world over. So these are really helpful in helping us reflect on our own lives and reflect on the subjects that we're asking about. And when our lives are reflected back to us as stories, they help give meaning to our experiences. And they help us recognize the growth that's inherent to any experience. And also, they help us recognize that in every ending there is a beginning, and that there is a deep beauty in beginning again. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed the story of the Fool, and look forward to more stories to come. Till next time.
Mm-hmm.